have a Bible here. That's okay. I'll go get one.
He's going to go all totally by memory. Jose has the whole Bible in his melon.
You know what just happened?
Oh, man. Oh, live video just stopped.
You know what just happened? I just swallowed a piece of date because I was rushing to say, here we are again. Oh, no, I have to say it again because now the Facebook Live is not live yet. But we have an interesting program for you today. I'm waiting for John to get ready. I'm gonna be right back. Don't go away.
TikTok! It is 7 o'clock. It is time to rock. Jose is going for a walk to get a Bible that he forgot.
Here we are again.
All right. Welcome everybody to our broadcast. Sorry for that. We had this Facebook every once in a while just kind of drops out on us.
Somehow
so
Facebook decided to misbehave.
Restart. Reconciliation. Anyways, so tonight we're going to be continuing on with really the pinnacle of the Joseph story. We are going to be really going to have to push it tonight. We're going to start at the end of chapter 43 and go all the way.
We have lots of time because we have the love of God. He's going to be merciful to lead us and to guide us and to give us the wisdom to chop it up and be fantastic. Fantastic.
So this is your first time ever being here. Our mandate's pretty simple. We want to help those who want to read the Bible for themselves.
Yes.
To have that confidence and even to kind of walk along with us. Maybe be discipled by us as we kind of do it live, I guess.
Yeah. I apologize for the coughing. Like I said before, I was eating a date and rushing to that. I just swallowed a whole piece of date and now my throat is also itchy. So if you hear me coughing a couple of times, my apologies. But we do have something interesting for you today. Today, we're starting to see the culmination of this story, which is not going to happen today.
Jose is a former swimmer.
I know. I used to swim a lot when I was young. As a matter of fact, I was swimming when I was just about 2 years. No, when was it? Yeah, just about 3 years ago when I was in Dominican Republic. I registered in a club because I needed to exercise, and that was amazing. It brought back all my swimming days. But here it's a bit more difficult. But anyways, this is not the story for today. The story for today is about Joseph and the amazing dream coat and the Last Supper. Which one is the Last Supper?
Well, there's two suppers in the text today. It's the twin Last Suppers. Both times they're fearful. This was going to be their last supper ever. But they're going to be. I don't know what they thought. Maybe they thought they'd be cooked for a supper.
Yeah.
A lot of food.
Joseph said, "I want to have you for dinner." And they kind of got scared. They thought he was going to have them for dinner, but he was going to have them eating with him, which is nice. But let's read a little because we have a few verses from the previous chapter, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we're reading in Genesis chapter 43. We're going to go back. Of course, at the beginning of the story, Joseph had all these dreams of somehow his brothers, maybe his parents, bowing before him. Sold him into slavery. He was there for 20 years. He rose to the top of the food chain, and even just under Pharaoh in leadership, he had this he recorded a number of dreams, which allowed him to, in the whole region, in some ways, to be saved from hunger. And then reserving the money they made the food they made over 7 years, and began to distribute it. And then his brothers came that sold him in slavery, and they appeared before him. They gives them food. They convinces them. He says, "You got to bring your little brother back." They come back with a little brother, and this is where we're starting.
This is where we are at the very last verses, right? Verse 33 was it that we left?
Yeah. He saw his little brother. He says, "May God be gracious to you," and that caused him in Genesis 43, verse 30, to begin to weep and he kind of gets himself back in control, and then he sits down with his brothers for a meal. Genesis 43, verse 32. That's where we're about.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to read these few verses, and then we're going to make a quick comment, so we can move on to chapter 44. It says here, they served him. I am reading from the ESV version, English Standard Version, a version that is a bit more literal. That's why it doesn't sound exactly as the one that we usually read, which is NIV.
Did you share your video on your Facebook?
Oh, I forgot. Oh my Lord, I'm supposed to do this. You read while I do that.
All right,
because,
Genesis
this
43,
is
verse
necessary.
32. Comes back in the room. His brothers are all up before him. They don't know who he is. He knows who they are. It says this. So they served him, as Joseph, by himself, and them by themselves, meaning his brothers, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is loathsome to the Egyptians. Now they were seated before him, that's Joseph, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another, his brothers, in astonishment. He took portions to them from his own table, but Benjamin's portion was 5. So they feasted and drank freely with him.
Say about this, I'm happy because today is amazing. The very first thing that you see.
This is a question that you have an answer to.
I thought you get it. The very first thing that you see is Benjamin get a portion that's 5 times bigger. Why?
Well, that's the last thing that you see in the text.
Oh, okay.
You're asking me.
All right.
Why?
Okay. Fine. Yeah. Last thing. Okay.
Go ahead. You make your point. I'll have to back up a bit. The other verses.
There are several things that are important here. Starting with the fact that he set them in order according to their birth, and this is important because they are still assuming that he doesn't that he's just a ruler in Egypt. They don't know who he is, and to them it was a great surprise. But what I bring up when I say about that portion that's 5 times bigger is because uh, the biggest problem they had with Joseph when in his youth before they sold him as a slave was envy. Was because his father treated him, gave him always some privileges that they didn't have. He favored him instead of his brothers, and so they had an enormous envy for Joseph. So Joseph did this, I believe, this is pure speculation, if you will, just to see how they would behave under this circumstance, if they show any sign of envy at the special treatment that their brother was getting.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 3 different meals that happen, 3 different encounters of Joseph, and you say.
I know. Thank you.
I know, you said you didn't like it when you said
I
that.
keep reminding myself that I am moved too much, and it's annoying when you listen to it. Yeah,
that was your point.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, I agree. All the way through these encounters of Joseph is not revealing himself. He knows it's his brothers, and he's clearly testing it.
Yes.
I totally agree that he was aware that his own being spoiled by his father Jacob for being one of the children of Rachel, his favorite wife, was the reason why he got sold away. So he's like, let's just see if I spoil Benjamin, will he get? How will they look angry and hostile? And they don't show any evidence here, but clearly, as the story goes on, hearts have changed and things have changed. So yeah. Other than that, I mean, we started out the text with this real division. In fact, it colors this story a little bit. It says when they had a meal with him, he sat separately from the Hebrews. It must have looked different. I think they probably were were bearded, while the Egyptians were clean shaven. We find that out in the Joseph story earlier on when he's shaved. So there was a prejudice between the Egyptians and the Hebrews, and this probably helped Joseph to not be obviously their brother because he looked different, and there's a real division.
They all had a
two.
goatee. I imagine that Joseph had a little goatee here.
Yeah, he could have had one, and they had even ceremonial ones that when there was one pharaoh was actually a woman, she still wore
a little goatee there that made him look different, and they had this wig as well. So I imagine, and they used a lot of makeup. So I can imagine how Joseph looked completely, and especially after 20 years that had passed since they sold him, that would have changed Joseph's physique. Obviously, he was very young when he was sold, and now he was a man, a developed, mature man. So the appearance physically would have been different. Yes.
All right, so they have this meal, and it says they feasted and drank freely with him. It says in the end of verse 34. So there was kind of the tension they had of they had brought the food, they bought the food, but then the money was put back in their bags. And why should we go back? Some of that tension seems to have abated, and they just had this fine meal together. So we're going to go on to Genesis chapter 44 and start on what happens next. Because these chapter divisions are kind of funny. Leave you in a bit of a
and they're going to leave us hanging here on 44 as well. We're going to see the culmination of all of this in chapter 45. That's going to happen next week, God permitting.
All right.
So you're going to have to be patient because today we're going to leave us on a cliffhanger again.
All right, we're not going to go. We're going to race right to the end of it.
To the end of 44. Or you want to do 45?
Well,
too?
we'll see. We'll see what we get.
All right,
I'm ready for that. All right. Genesis chapter 44. So they had this meal. Then verse 1. Then he commanded his house steward. I love this anonymous person who's the character of the story. Then he commanded his house steward, saying, "Fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's put each man's money in the mouth of the sack. Put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his money for the grain." And he did as Joseph had told him. As soon as it was light, must have been there overnight, the men were sent away, they with their donkeys. They had just gone out of the city and were not far off when Joseph said to his house steward, "Up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and which he indeed uses for divination? They have done wrong in doing this.'"
All right. Okay.
Let's stop there.
Yeah.
Get into it.
Very quickly.
Interesting.
Very quickly, because we want to try to reach to 45.
I got lots to say about this too. So you go
for it. All right. So very quickly, the very first thing that we have here is these guys. They got Simeon back. They have their sack full, just putting there as much as they can carry, as the instruction has it, and they are happy. The whole crew is going, and they figure everything is taken care of. My father was wrong, says Judah. He exaggerated, and now we're going back, and they are like, "Yoo-hoo, we're out of here." And it is all good, right? But they are not expecting the great surprise that is awaiting them. There is a lot that we have to say about this chapter. I don't think we're going to make it through 45, but I'm going to stop right here because I know you have to say a few things about this, and then I might add something depending on how you come to it.
Yeah, one of the things that we highlight here once in a while is just the beautiful. This is not just a bunch of the Bible. Here's not a bunch of commandments. There's all these amazing stories, and God uses literary means to communicate things that are just important to the message that He's communicating. So Joseph commands his steward to fill their sacks with food as much as they can carry. So there's an extravagance of his gift, which is a fine attention to when he kind of sets them up with this silver cup. Like, I gave you so much. Why did you steal this cup? So they take all this away. And then it says in verse 2, "But my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest." Now, this is an interesting, and we see this, it's not by coincidence, we see it all the way through the Hebrew scriptures, is the use of repetition. So, why did it say silver cup? Well, because it's not like silver is so precious. If we're going to gold cup, maybe it's worth that much more. But this is actually the 20th time in the Joseph story that the word silver reappears. Yes. Because when Joseph was sold into slavery, he was sold for 20 pieces of silver. That's right. So it's a really neat literary reminder of the tension of what should have been unforgivable to send your brother basically to his death. It's kind of coming to its culmination here, placing of this silver cup. Yeah, so that was at least one of the things. I wanted to talk a little bit about this cup of divination, but I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah, well, that we at least I believe that the reference here, but did we read that already?
Yeah, well, it's made mention.
Oh, yeah. That's true. But one thing that's important to remember: Joseph had the Spirit of God in him, and the opportunities he had to reveal the dreams, etc., was through God, which he always made sure that he warned those that he revealed the dreams to, that it was not him doing it, but God through him. So when it's mentioned here, this divination thing, we have to remember that the Egyptians had practices that were like that, and their magicians and their seers, etc., did have this kind of beliefs and practices. So to them, it would not have been surprising, and in fact, to the steward, I believe that it would not have been surprising, or as in fact, he might have invented the idea that the cup was used for divination, because the reality is that to him, everyone that was in power in there was doing that.
Yeah, so maybe just a bit of background why, where you, as a Jewish person, as a Christian as well, kind of wrestle with why we have this divination cup. It's because later on in the scriptures, God makes very clear that divination or the use of chants or these other sort of cultural things that were happening around them, pagan practices, were not something that that God followers were supposed to do. Right? Yeah. In fact, in Deuteronomy 18, it explicitly said you can't do it. With divination, it could be in some cases you might cut open an animal and look at how the entrails are organized, and that would say something about the future. You might, in this case, with this cup, it could be that you put drops of oil and see how they moved around. Put drops of wine in water. There's all different names for these kind of divination. But one of the reasons, of course, why that God's word speaks against it is we're supposed to trust God with our future, and that God has got the future. We don't control God with magical means. We trust God because He is good, right? And we don't use chants and these sorts of things to try to control or try to know our future.
That's right. We do have to remember here that Joseph, the law that God established in Deuteronomy was not yet established here, and yet I believe that Joseph would have known better. It says here that Joseph used this cup to drink, but certainly it's true that Egyptians in those days did have those practices. But again, this is just the beginning. Let's move on because we want to reach 45.
All right, so this was the instruction. You go ahead and read verse.
All right. Okay. So when he overtook them, he spoke to them these words, and they said to him, "Why does my Lord speak such words as this? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the money that we found in the mouth of our sacks we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? Whichever of your servants is found with it shall die." Listen to this. Wow. "And we also will be my Lord's servants," he said. "Let it be as you say. He who is found with it shall be my servant, and the rest of you shall be innocent." I probably should stop here.
So interesting. I just kind of struck me as you're
Yeah.
reading it. Is so often you would have someone instruct someone to do something, and then they would do it, and you would hear about it again. But
Mhm.
here it just says he did. He overtook them and spoke these words to them. So it's like there's a pace now to the narrative. He doesn't even like the writer does not even want to repeat the same instructions that Joseph had given to the steward.
Yeah.
So interesting here. Here there's a sense of powerful confrontation with innocence and guilt. Of course, they're guilty for selling their brother. But here they've suggested, maybe in a way to kind of say, there's no way we did any of this. You can kill us, right? It says, behold, if the money was found, with whom it's found, let him die, which is actually kind of interesting. Either it says, how can we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? Because there's not just the cup, but there's money there. So they're kind of going over the top to try to convince this person that they are innocent. You think in some ways that they might suspect something because they had money in their bags the last time too.
On the contrary, you know what I see here? I see a bunch who are very sure of themselves. They are putting themselves on the line and saying, if any one of us stole, you can kill him. Listen to this. This is important. I mean, they are pretty confident. And in fact, it's extraordinary that coming from the background that we had about these brothers, they are literally putting themselves in front of the others. Like their voices say, none of us would do anything like this. Like they are very sure that they are innocent to the point of declaring, if one of us did it, you can kill him and the others will be your slaves. I mean, that's a big thing.
And there's not hardly any legal system in their day where death would be the punishment of theft. And so their response is to say the code of Hammurabi did include the possibility of dying. In many codes, you would lose your hand or something for stealing. But in fact, nowhere in the Bible does it have any kind of these sorts of punishments for theft. But yeah, I think they should have guessed that something was up because someone stuck money in their bags before. But regardless, they said, hey, you know what? And then the response again is leniency, less punishment. He says, well, no, I'm not going to kill anybody or take all of you as slaves, only slavery to the one in whom has this cup. So then verse 11 starts. Then they hurried. There's a drama here. They hurried. Each man lowered his sack to the ground, and each man opened his sack, each one after the other, beginning with the oldest, ending with the youngest. You build this drama, like each sack that's open, no cup, no cup, no cup. And the cup was found, in verse 12, in Benjamin's sack. And they tore their clothes. When each man loaded his donkey, they went to the city.
No, look at this here. This is so important because right here, the narrative is telling you something. These guys are sure of themselves to the point that not only they offered, you can kill the one who you find, and the others will be slaves, but they hurried to open the sack and expose it for them to search it. So they are confident that there's nothing wrong, that they have done nothing. I mean, that's what I read into this, and the fact that they tore their clothes and loaded their donkey and returned to the city. There's an additional to this. I mean, the sack was found in Benjamin's. The cup was found in Benjamin's sack perfectly. They could have just say, okay, he's guilty. Take him away. But what they did, they packed it up, they tore their cloth, they wept to God, because that's a reaction of an Israelite when there was a great reason for mourning. They would tear their clothes, and that's pretty well known. And then they all returned to Egypt instead of just saying, this guy, he did that, take him away. I don't care.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole rest of the story, observing, are they going to ditch, right? In the end of the last meal, he's seeing if they are envious of Benjamin, and now they're going to see, are you going to ditch him and run for the border? So he had every opportunity to do that, but now they have to deal with that front.
That's Joseph. Right. Yes. Verse 14. Go ahead, brother. Oh, you want me to read? All right. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell before him to the ground. Oh, Lord, this is nice. Joseph said to them, "What deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that a man like me can indeed practice divination?" And Judah said, "What shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also, in whose hand the cup has been found." But he said, "Far be it from me that I should do so. Only the man in whose hand the cup was found shall be my servant. But as for you, go up in peace to your father." Hallelujah.
So there the test is clearly laid out before the brothers. Here's your chance. You sold me into slavery. You can sell your brother into slavery. Go with the grain. Go with the money. You can just go scot-free. What are they going to do? We're going to get to that in a second. In fact, what comes next is the longest speech in the entire book of Genesis.
Yes.
So when Judah, we have Judah taking the lead. Again, we talked about this last week. That Judah, the third born, I think he is. He begins to take more of a leadership role. We only had a comment, and of course, there's again this repetition of the brothers bowing to the ground. That first dream that Joseph had.
That's important because that's a third time that they do that.
Yeah,
and that's precisely what Joseph has seen. It's really amazing.
He's seen what?
In his dreams, 3 times they bowed to him.
Is that right? You took that up. I don't know.
Yes.
Do you know where that is?
That was 37, I believe.
Oh, there it is. 37.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Genesis 37, verse 5. Once Joseph had a dream which he told his brothers, and they hated him even more. He said, "Here, this dream which I dreamed. There we were binding sheaves in the field, and suddenly my sheaves stood up and remained upright, and your sheaves gathered around and bowed low to my sheaf." And then his brothers answered, "Do you mean to reign over us? Do you mean to rule over us?" And he hated them even more for his talk about his dreams. And then the dream is about the sun and the stars. Down. So I don't know if it says 3 times, but that was the dream of him bowing down.
Yeah, I believe I have read that somewhere about the 3 different instances when they, in the dream, that he had them bow 3 times. And in fact, his father asked him at some point, "Do you mean that you're going to rule over us? That we are going to bow to you?"
Yeah, that was the moon and the stars.
That's right. Yeah.
This time the sun bowed down. And he told his brothers, his father and his brothers, his father being, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Are we become an I and your mother and brothers of God?" His brothers brought this up, and his father kept the matter in mind. And then it goes on to them being in Shechem.
That's the thing that's important. His father did not forget.
He didn't forget the envy percolating around his family.
Yeah.
So this is definitely kind of reaching this peak moment. And the only other thing, and again, this is, to me, is a bit of a literary thing that something that struck me. I'm not saying it is so strongly important, but if you think back to Jacob's story, Genesis, which chapter that is, when Jacob goes to Laban and works for 7 years for the sister Leah, ends up getting tricked for he's trying to get Rachel, but then he ends up marrying Leah, and then basically the next day, I think almost he marries the wife he prefers that has to work 7 years, but eventually Jacob flees in the night with his wives and his children and all their flocks that he had brought. And Rachel takes something. Rachel takes the house idols, again, you're like, this is weird. She takes the house idols with her, and then what happens? She takes these idols, and Laban pursues them, and they have this moment of confrontation. And I think there's an echo of that same reality here too, where this divination cup is there, and this is in some ways it is the culmination not just of Joseph being sold into slavery, but of the injustice done between Rachel and Leah. Yeah. So there's a bit of I think a literary reminder of the brokenness that in some ways is reaching its peak. Right? This family's broken up. One brother says you shouldn't have sold Joseph, and another brother says, I'm going to make sure that Benjamin doesn't die. And so it's this whole amazing, long, unfolding story.
But then here you have, at this point, how Judah come out as a leader. He takes the lead and confronts this leader, as a matter of fact, this great ruler. He dared to come in the defense of his brother and put himself in the line. And this is a beauty. I believe. I mean, I believe this is amazing. Okay. And verse 18. Then Judah went up to him and said, "O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word to my Lord's ear, and let not your anger burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself." My Lord asked his servant, saying, "Have you a father or a brother?" Lord, and a young brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead, and he alone is of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servant, that I may see with my eyes, that I may set my eyes on him. I need better glasses. We said to my Lord, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. That's verse 23. Then you said to your servant, unless your youngest brother come down with you, you shall not see my face again. Yeah. When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And when our father said, go again, buy us a little food, we said, we cannot go down. If your if our youngest brother does not come with us, then we will go down, for we cannot see the man's face unless our younger brother is with us. Then your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore two sons. One left me, and I said, surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him again. If you take this one also from me, and harm happen to him, you will bring down my gray hairs in evil to Sheol. Oh, hallelujah. Now, therefore, as soon as I come to your servant my father, and the boy is not with us, then as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servant will bring down the gray hair of your servant our father with sorrows to Sheol. For your servant became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame for my father all my life. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord, and let the boy go back with his brother. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father. That's an amazing text, and that shows a lot, a lot.
Yeah, this is it's quite a long reading, but it was this whole defense argument. He was like standing.
He's being a lawyer here, and a good one.
Yeah, he did a great job of starting out kind of honoring his listener, your equal Pharaoh. Then he retells the story. This is the evidence. You you asked about
I
my
am
father
before
was.
you at my, with my face to the ground. I'm yours. You understand what the consequences of me not bringing this child back is, and I plead to you, please let not this happen. I mean, this was amazing. And the most important thing is how Judah came with such reverence, such humility, with such open heart. I mean, he could have defended himself in a different way. I mean, they had all the reason to do it because they knew that they did not do this. You see, he could have argued. I mean, this is a false accusation. You're lying or whatever. But he come, and not only that. Notice how, most importantly, Benjamin did the deed according to Joseph, and they are all taking responsibility for it. Look how he says in here. What is it? Mm, oh, what is it?
What you looking
Mm,
for?
1 second. What shall we say to my Lord, verse 16? What shall we speak, or how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. You see, he is putting himself and his brothers together with Benjamin here, and saying, this is not his deed, this is our deed. We are all responsible for this. And in fact, I believe that he's going further. I believe that he's bringing back what they did in the past, that God is confronting him with this as a punishment for what they did before with Joseph.
Absolutely, absolutely. God has found out in verse 16 the iniquity of your servants. So he's not telling this person the backstory, but even though they're innocent of
This,
this thing, there's no one is innocent, not even one, as the Bible says, right? We all sin and fall short of the glory of God. And he's saying, but he unpacks this whole story in an amazing way. In fact, here he admits what he didn't admit before, that his brother was not just no more, that his brother is dead. In verse 20, of course, he's not dead. The one they thought was dead, he's alive. Right before them, um, what strikes me as I kind of look at this story, and maybe, again, sometimes you have to be careful not to read too much into things, but why didn't Jacob come? Why didn't Jacob? I mean, he's worried about his
an
son
old
Benjamin.
man.
Why didn't he come? He ends up coming later.
I mean, how old was Jacob at this point? He was like 100 and plus years. He was like 120 years when,
seemed to find his legs working for him when he
yeah.
came the next later part of the story. But anyways, but yeah, there's just a really neat unpacking here. One of the things it does say is, again, he's retelling the story with his own father in verse 27. In fact, it sort of again expands on what we heard from Jacob earlier. It says, your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me two sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn in pieces, and I have not seen him since. So there's an ambiguity there to, is he dead or is he not dead? Um, and yeah, if you take this one from me and harm befalls me, you'll bring my gray hair down, Sheol and sorrow. It's hard to feel sorry for Jacob, but
Certainly,
that is where the
certainly, we
story.
know that Jacob was, a bit of a deceiver himself, and even still to this point, it's a bit of playing his cards in a way that's not necessarily the best. But again, what's important is how these brothers, they come together as one body here, and they don't say, this is the guy taken. No, they all take the guilt for what has happened, and they are not questioning the authority and the power of these rulers of Egypt. They are not confronting them with a situation that they know that they have not caused, and they are just submitting and humbling themselves in a way that is evident that they have changed, that they had their lives has been transformed over the years.
I mean, I would say more specifically, Judah is speaking.
Yeah.
So maybe he's speaking for all of them, but there is a concrete shift from they speaking to Judah speaking. Judah has already said, I will take them. But he makes sure, that message that I am willing, if judgment is due, like it's the brothers who say, oh, kill the person who does it and put us all as slaves. Judah doesn't say that.
No.
The brothers say that. But Judah comes up and stands in the gap between the judgment that they, in some ways, again, if you think about it, they're the ones that deserve the judgment, but it's going to fall on Benjamin. If they were evil, yeah, they would let it go and say, okay, well, we tried and put him into slavery. But Judah is, and I think, again, if you connect this always with Jesus, thinking of the New Testament, there is a powerful gospel story
right
going
there.
on here. It's
Right
anticipation of Jesus, because Judah was the forefather of Jesus. But here in this moment is this longest build-up story in the book of Genesis, just shouting about the Savior.
Yes. I mean, he's saying that. I mean, I am ready to stand in the gap. I'm being the sacrifice here. I'm willing to be the ransom for him. Just take me and let him go. This is amazing.
Yeah, in verse 32, he explicitly says that. In some ways, it's because he'd be the surety. It says, for your servant became surety for the lad to my father. Right after he talks about his father, had gray head going down Sheol. If I do not bring him back to you, then let me bear the blame before my father forever. It's pretty low here. Now I know I think you read all the way to the end, but in verse 31 he recounts the words of his father. That's your servants. Oh, so they're anticipating what Jacob said, that your servants will bring the gray hair of your servant, our father, down to Sheol, which is Hebrew word for the place of the dead. It doesn't necessarily mean hell or anything like that. They're just saying just to the pits. And it's not a good place, but it's a place of the dead. And then he repeats that at the end of this chapter where he says, for how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me, for fear that I see the evil that would overtake my father. And again, in this whole story, I don't feel sorry for Jacob. But then when this final appeal ends, because I want to go into the next chapter, it says this in verse 1 of chapter 45. Given this whole appeal, he's thrown himself on the mercy court, said, I will take the punishment. I will take the punishment. And then it says in verse 1, when Joseph could not control himself, this is the third time, before all those who stood by him, and he cried, have everyone go out for me. The people that should be his fellow Egyptians, that he should keep close. It's the most bizarre moment they must have thought. Have everyone go out for me. There is no man with him. And Joseph made himself known to his brothers. He wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it. The household of Pharaoh heard it. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? His brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence.
That's a wow moment.
That's the moment of revelation. This build up, he's done all these tests.
And he finally realized these guys are not the guys who sold me. These guys are definitely new people. These are people who really deserve redemption. And this is it. I mean, this is the gospel. Right here, we are discovering the gospel. In this moment, we see how Joseph discovered that his brothers, his 11 brothers, are new people, are people whose hearts have been transformed, who truly have changed their ways and have become humble and meek and willing to give themselves for the others. And that's pretty amazing. This is why he could not stand this moment and just wept, literally crying. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Pretty
Well, and
amazing.
it's a pretty the like the idea. What the good news does is it changes everything. The New Testament talks about us becoming new creations.
Mhm.
It's such a radical transformation. And in this story, Judah was the one who wanted to sell Joseph.
Mm.
So the slave seller, verse 33,
He's becoming the slave.
he's
Willing to
willing to
become the
become
slave.
a slave, right? And in this story, like what I was saying about my lack of pity for Jacob, it is driven by the love of the father.
Mhm.
It is the love, because Joseph says, he says, I'm Joseph. You think that would be the punchline? Go right away on it. He says, is my father still alive? So Joseph loves the father, and Judah is worried about the father. And it's Judah, forefather of Jesus, who's willing to sacrifice himself out of love for the
Just
Father.
to honor the Father.
The Father God. No greater love. No
I
greater
mean,
love.
if you didn't get
For
that
God
one,
so loved the
there
world
it
that he
is.
sent his one whoever would believe in him would not perish,
but
have
have
eternal
everlasting
life.
life.
And in this moment, you have this son. Now I know I'm mixing up the story a little bit, but Joseph was dead. And it's
To
in the
them, Joseph was
resurrection.
dead, yeah.
It's in the resurrection of this brother.
All of a sudden became
everything
alive
changes.
before them. Yes, yes.
It is just such a powerful story.
Mhm.
But ultimately, pointing to the most powerful story the world has ever known. That God, Father God, loves us so much, and
That
the
he
Son
gave
loves
himself.
the
Yeah.
love. The Son loves the Father so much. He's willing to step in the gap and to take on the form of a slave, Paul says in Philippians 2, and empty himself right to the point of death, even death on the cross.
On the cross, just to rescue his children.
Mhm.
Yes, that's it. I mean, yes, just to redeem his children, pay the price that we deserve. That's simple. This is amazing. Eh?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is. No greater. And so we often see this in the Old Testament. It's this imperfect, but still a sign pointing to the ultimate
That's
Jesus, who would sacrifice himself for us who do not have love for the Father.
And truly, I can say a few other things that we have to realize that this is not a favor that God does for anyone in particular. The whole design of the whole world is within that same context. God loves us, and He has given Himself to us, and He's seeking us, and He's doing everything in His power to seek us. And those that turn their faces toward Him are rescued because Jesus, the Son, has paid the price that we deserve. The guilt that we are carrying, we don't need to carry it anymore because He already paid for it. And all we need to do is to receive His salvation, is to just say yes to the gift, the gracious gift that God is extending to us. It's like, there's a thing that I usually have. Preached in Christmas a couple of times about how God in Christmas and Christmas Day, everybody go grab their gift, and I mean, if you receive a gift and you don't open it, you never know what is in it. You have to take it, you have to receive it so that you can enjoy it. In this particular case, God is extending an invitation to you to receive that gift. Jesus Christ, our Lord. I mean, this is the perfect picture of what He has done in the cross. And He is inviting you to just accept it. Just come to Him as you are. You don't need to get cleaner. You don't need to get prettier. You don't need to wash your clothes. Just come as you are, and He is open arms ready to welcome you.
The Bible says in the New Testament we can approach the throne of grace. We are, uh, you are just. There's no distance between you and God. You are present with Him. You open up your heart to Him and talk to Him. You don't have to do anything special. You don't need to be. We say we're not even religious. You don't have to be religious because God is near you. And I mean, and sometimes it takes just being open to God to recognize how much you need Him. These brothers lived for 20 years. They maybe weren't always aware until they came to this throne room that they had needed to be forgiven, that they needed reconciliation. They were carrying a weight of guilt that that never went away. Yeah. And apart from the cross, apart from the forgiveness of Jesus, you keep carrying that weight. You keep carrying it. And sometimes you need to come before God and say, God, just show me why I need you. Show me my sins. Show me my need for forgiveness. And that is also a prayer that He will absolutely show you. Always, right? And God doesn't want us to have this nebulous sense of guilt. The Holy Spirit will show you what you need to confess. And you just speak it out to God and say, God, I'm sorry, I've sinned against you. Wait, you just speak them to God. Say them out loud. You can say them in your heart. But He will forgive you. God, forgive me. And give me the faith to believe that the sins that I've committed are completely paid for. And He promises you the weight of that guilt will be gone.
It's gonna be gone. See, look at this. I mean, you see the brokenness in this story. You see how these people are people who have carried with them great evil and great guilt. How they have been tortured by guilt because of things that they have done, which are pretty bad if we look at them. And yet, God, I mean, these are the foundation from which the people of Israel were created and where the gospel was born. Jesus himself is a direct descendant of Judah in here. And if, if God had it in him to forgive these people and to open his heart to them and to receive them, and they have come repented, why not you? Why not me? Look at me. I mean, I do not deserve to be talking to you about this. And yet, God has received me with open arms. I believe He's ready to receive you as well. And definitely, all you have to do, as John has just said, is just cry out to Him in not a special way because there's no separation. The religious thing is a cop out. There's no such thing as religion that can save you. Religion, in fact, sink you more into darkness. You need to just believe that that relationship with God is possible, that He is not a faraway being that you cannot reach. He is reachable. All you need to do is just call Him. He will respond.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And and one of the things you can discover is not only that God isn't distant, which religion sometimes can do, uh, but that He's ready and He is ready to forgive you and to accept you, to forgive you of all of your sins. Um, and then as we approach Him, it's kind of like with Joseph. They thought Joseph was dead, and some of you might think Jesus is dead. Some of you might think God's not real. But like these men, when they came to the throne room, they knew that Joseph was real and he was alive. And as we approach God, you'll recognize that He's not an imaginary friend or a really cool teacher who died 2,000 years ago. Jesus is alive. More alive than Joseph.
You know what's funny,
More
John?
present than
You know what's gracious, John? That's a verifiable fact.
Joseph.
You come to God with a truly open heart, with a truly broken heart, willing to listen. He's going to respond to you. You just have to test it. And if I'm lying, but the reality is that you need to come to Him with a true sense of surrender, with a true open heart, willing to humbly submit to Him if He's the God that we're saying that He is. And He will just show you. Just give it a try. I mean, what do you got to lose? Really?
Amen. I must feel like we shouldn't keep going on there, Jose.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I tell you something else. Um, this it's just the beginning. Um, you could live a life of miracles. You could live a life of true victory. And I'm not talking about some of the things that some people out there say, because you hear a lot of garbage out there, people that talk about things that are not real. But the Bible says it's real. So you read it, you read through it, and if you read it as information alone, I'd be happy to if you do, because God is going to open your eyes if you seek the truth in it. It's I can tell you that this there's no there are a lot of stories here, but this is not story. This is the reality of a God who is calling his children. And every single word in here is truth that can bring life and life eternal, not just a life for tomorrow. It's certainly not going to uh, keep you from having problems once in a while, for having circumstances, because those are part of the world in which we live, which is a broken world. Definitely, you're going to find yourself in situations at times that are difficult. But the reality is that when you are living a life of surrender, a life of true relationship with God, those problems are easier to see, easier to discern, easier to solve.
Yeah, and you think about this motley crew of Hebrews that they were looking down a tunnel of another 5 years of no food, and they were starving in year one, right? They, they maybe didn't know it was going to be 7 years, but they knew they were desperate. And to come from such hunger and desperation, and then all of a sudden, and of course, initially they're shocked and afraid that he's going to kill them because this is their brother they sent to slavery. They didn't know that they were forgiven. But when forgiveness was clear, to go from a place of starvation and no hope for the future to know that you are in a relationship with the King, that's what it means to follow Jesus. Right? We talked earlier a little bit about this idea of guilt. Um, and I think sometimes we think today, maybe you think this idea of sin is hard to deal with, or maybe you don't want to think about, don't make me feel guilty, people will say, right? Don't make me feel guilty. Yeah, Liz, I can't make you feel guilty. You know in your own heart that you've done more than just violated your own values or some cultural thing, that there is actually an objective reality that you have broken. That's why murder is bad everywhere. Broken
That's why
adultery
stealing
is bad
everywhere.
everywhere. Gossiping is bad everywhere.
Lying
is bad everywhere. All there, we have this sin, but what guilt does is it gives us a hunger to do something about it. And I think these brothers over those 20 years, that what they had done, working on them and changing them. But without a savior, there is no hope. Without forgiveness, there is no hope. And they came as scared as they were to be face to face, literally face to face with what they had done. They had met the possibility that their whole lives could now be transformed, that their sin could be forgiven, their guilt could be taken away. And that's the promise that Jesus has.
You said something amazing just now, forgiveness. You know how many people out there live a bitter life because they don't know how to say I forgive you from their heart, and it's sad because when you don't forgive, you're not torturing the person who did something to you. You're torturing yourself, and the bitterness is on you, and the suffering is on you. Forgiveness is a joke that we play on ourselves. Unforgiveness is a joke we play on ourselves, and the truth is that we just carry the pain unnecessarily. The best thing that anybody can do is you have a problem with somebody. Sorry, done. You know,
Well,
so
and sometimes we experience these things that we were talking about it when they flip the remarks and just forgive people. But sometimes it is that easy. But sometimes there's really bad things that maybe you're thinking about in your own life. So maybe for you, the first step isn't just kind of, maybe God can just let you let it go. But the best thing, the first thing can always be to ask Jesus to forgive you.
yeah,
And then just see
Start
what
there.
happens. Just see what happens.
Start there.
Just see what happens when the love that God has, Father's love, that Jesus died for, because he loved the Father so much. That love, the love of God, and who knows how your life can change with that.
One quick last word. Even if you don't know how to handle any of this, just give us a call, send us an email or a
Direct
text.
message, whatever.
Yeah, and
Right?
we'd be happy to speak with you, to guide you, to give you information that will help you deal with this whole thing.
Yeah, so just a reminder, we're back here again at 7 p.m., the Lord willing, next Thursday here on Facebook. This Sunday, we'll be here at 100 Nipissing Road. Of course, we're here almost every day except Sundays and Mondays for the Corner Thrift Store. There's another way you can bump into Jose or myself. Love to pray with you any day of the week. You come in with a prayer need. We'd love to do that, of course, in the shop here as well. And then Sunday morning, we're here at 9:30 a.m. for breakfast. Online worship starts about 10:30. The worship service starts about 10:15. Any one of those are wide open invitation. You've seen us, you know what we look like. That's your way in.
I'm the bald guy. Okay?
Yeah, I'm the not bald guy. So,
Thank you, guys.
Why don't
Thank you so much.
Why don't we pray?
All right. You go ahead, bro.
All right, God, thank you so much for your word. Wow, just almost couldn't wait these last few weeks, reading story after story, waiting for reconciliation. Lord, thank you for this wonderful picture that points to you, Jesus. You loved the perfect Father so much. You loved him so much that you were willing to die for our sins, we who don't deserve it. We just thank you for that love, Lord. It amazes us. Help us to just receive that truth by faith, not by words, just by faith and believe it. And let us believe it more deeply every day that you continue to love us. You love us when we're sinners. You love us even if we're enemies of the cross of Christ. You love us every day as we serve you. And we get to use that love because we receive it. Thank you for that love, Lord Jesus. And just bless all those who are listening, that they too might know the love of Christ, which passes. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.